see black jewelry. I know I stand out, I don't need a trifling. I jack the limelight if you don't think you're hip. Quick, tell them catch me if you can, on some gingerbread. Oh, I never ride solo. It's me and my chick looking like slow-mo.
Yo, down here in Tampa is Vince Buggs. Today on Keep It Rolling, I got some great guests. I got Peter and Mike on. Me and Mike go way back. And we're going to talk about how they support veterans. Mike and Pete have a great organization and they're going to explain it. And they're going to explain who they are and how they are here now in this organization to help veterans help with their lives. Because today, it's Men's Mental Health back in June. And a lot of the veterans are suffering, not just male veterans, but all veterans across the spectrum. And so no further ado, Pete, Mike, how are you doing today?
Great.
All right. So Pete, give everybody a little background about yourself, man.
Thank you very much for having me on this podcast. I think it's really impactful what you do. My background, coming out of college, actually started as a police officer. So I was on the job for a couple of years and got to experience a world that we don't always know or see based on how well we're protected by our families. Today, I run a business where I meet people where they are, understand where they are, and help them where they go. I also part of the Valrico Chamber, the Plant City Chamber, and a charity called Steel Toes and Second Chances, which is really, really new and exciting as well. So yeah, I appreciate you having us on.
All right. And Mike, we go way back, man. We were at CENTCOM and then we had a bunch of different missions together. So Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm good. It's great to see you again. You have the fountain of youth. You haven't aged even a day. I feel like getting out of the Marine Corps, you just gain weight and gray hair. But hey, thank you for having me on. And Peter, your family and us, thanks for the invite from you as well. So real quick about me, retired Marine Major, did 20 years, obviously was in Afghanistan, Iraq, multiple tours both. And then, like you said, the general and I spent some time at CENTCOM, shared that dirt, had that fun 20-hour days of not understanding how the clock doesn't stop.
That's right.
And after retirement, wife and I started a business, but more importantly, I was blessed and honored about a year and a half ago to get tied up to an organization called Outdoor Valor, which I can get more into. But the big thing is we focus on the mental health, and more than that with veterans and help them. And it's all completely free of charge. And we just take care of our brothers and sisters in arms.
Oh, awesome. And so, Pete, let me ask this question. What does men's mental health mean to you?
It's peace. It's something that we don't know how to focus on for ourselves. I was talking to Michael about it too. And I talk a lot about mental health is, as men, we're taught that we're responsible. We're responsible for our family's finances, our family structure, how our kids are raised, protecting our families. We're not taught to protect ourselves so much in that world where we take everything on and then we just kind of get pushed to the side. So it's very important that we understand and find the resources to help us find our own peace to protect ourselves again, not sacrificing our families or, our communities or, anything in that retrospect. But we have to, because we're more powerful when we have ourselves to contribute to those parts of our world.
Oh, amazing. So Mike, my question to you would be, can you share a moment in your life where you realized mental health needed more attention, and that you thought that mental health for men needed more attention? I'll have to edit that.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I'm going to tell you one of the things that I didn't realize was affecting me. So after you and I were together in CENTCOM, I got blessed and I got part of a program where I got to give a shout out. Every veteran hates him, but I got to give a shout out to James A. Haley.
Yes.
That VA. Listen, they have a program called PrEP. It's post-deployment rehabilitation evaluation program. And I got tied in. I don't know if you remember, if it was right around there. I had left for a few weeks, and then after I retired, I went back. And they tied me in. They're like, hey, based off an assessment, We're going to see how long we have to be there. I ended up being in the VA for 3 months, literally saved my life. And a lot of it was focused on mental health. One of the things that, I'll tie into like your question is during therapy, they realized, they said the question, who are your friends? And I was like, oh, my wife, that's my best friend. No, we got it. That's your wife. But who's your friends?
Right.
Like, oh, I don't have any friends. And they're like, what do you mean you don't have any friends? And I go, I don't trust anybody. Everyone's going to let me down. Everybody sucks. And here I'm standing today. I mean, I can look at you and I look at Peter, who is literally family to me. And, I have other friends now in my life. And that is a recourse of having good, successful mental health therapy that I had to focus on, because I had to realize that you can let people in,
right.
You just my brothers in arms, right and left. Hey, I get it. You got that right corner. I got that. And I'll take the center. But then I realized it doesn't have to be like that. So
right.
One of the focus points that we don't realize as people is a telltale sign about mental health.
No, and it's about the tribe. So, one of the things I did to adjust was when I got out of the military, instead of running back to CENTCOM, no 06 left behind or 07 left behind, I actually went and taught high school. One of my daughters was struggling, and I had made a decision to get out of the military because family, and Pete really touched on this, family really has to come first in your friends. So I literally realized that my identity could not be the military and chase another star. I was okay with getting out as a 1-star, and for my mental health, helped my one daughter get out of college. And then I transitioned and taught school with my other daughter. So I got to spend 4 years of high school at Newsom. But, I learned a lot there because I had that tribe of kids every day. And then I was coaching football. I was able to build a new identity. And I think everyone needs to do that, because Pete, the question I'd like to get here at you with is, growing up, what were some of the messages you got that you received when you were growing up that you realized as you got older, those messages weren't always good for long term?
Yeah, that's a good one. I touched on it earlier where, we're really raised to take on everything as men. We don't have to. What it does is, and I don't like to use the word ego so much, but it does. It creates this ego where I have to. It's on my shoulders.
Right.
And what's challenging is when, as we grow up and that's ingrained in us, we tend to stray away from the ability to ask for help.
Perfect.
And asking for help is one of those things that's like, oh my gosh, what will they think of me if I ask for help? I'm this big bad man that takes care of his family, protects, right? What do I look like then, right? And it's the fear of asking and the fear of perception, of which none of those matter when it comes down in the fire. I look at when I was in law enforcement, I had my group of guys that, we were on the same squad. Military is the same way. We respect and trust each other, but they're not here anymore with me. So, I have to find that community to be able to ask for help again, because they're not there. They don't have my 6.
Yeah, good
Who
point.
does, right? So we have to move away from what we're taught, and we're all in that age group where we're taught that you have to take it on, but you don't. It's okay to ask for help.
Mike, pause here. Mike, why do you think men struggle with talking about mental health openly?
That's a great question. We've talked about it a lot. In my own personal therapy, we talked about it. I talked about it when I was still active duty in the Marine Corps. And we still talk about it now with Outdoor Valor. It goes a lot to some of the comments that Peter has said earlier, especially in our generation, as a core of men, we grew up being, hey, men have to be men. You have to be just a rock solid. You cannot falter. You cannot break. You have to have the weight of the world. It's almost like that image of Atlas holding the globe over his shoulders. I mean, that's how men, it's ingrained into us, especially our generation. It's ingrained into you that you have to be the superhuman person. So when it comes down to like, I need assistance, I don't want to say you're afraid, but you feel like a failure. To echo on what Peter said, you feel like a failure because, like, what did I do wrong that I now need help? And so when you take that into the philosophical, the mental health thing, people don't understand it because it's that touchy-feely world that we're not used to. I can't tell you. I was just telling the other day, actually, this story about. Can't tell you how many times people said, "Man, I'm just struggling with something. I'm having night terrors. I'm just frustrated. I don't feel safe. I feel uneasy." Somebody walks up to me, I jump, and you look at them and say, "Hey, you need to talk about this." And I had a commander, and yet, listen, you and I both can say this in the military. We've had great commanders. We've had not so great commanders. And, the problem is that you got these folks that don't relate. And because mental health has this stigma, this false lie to it, and especially during the era we were in, when you go back to 2003, we're in the push coming out of Iraq. The after action brief of it was in a well deck. I mean, that was it. That was your mental health survey. It was like, hey, and you can't hear anything. And they're like, you feel something, talk about it. And you're like, I can't even hear what you're saying. So you go from that genre of people to, at the end, people understanding, hey, this is a serious issue. It's a problem. Let's address this. You had commanders who are like, oh, no, I want to know any combat vet, and I want to take them, and I want to put them in a bubble, and we're going to poke them, and we're going to see what's going on. So it makes you get into a shell like, I'm afraid to talk about it.
Right.
Because how am I going to be judged? How many times did we – and Peter, I'm sure you have the same thing with law enforcement. You could say the same thing, but as a focus on military, I'm going to say is this. How many times it was the stigma that if I ask for help, I'm going to lose my clearance. I'm not going to be allowed to go on that mission. Those that are pilots, I'm going to be grounded. I'm going to be looked at differently. I'm weak. I'm pathetic. I'm a loser, all that stuff. And those are all lies.
Right.
And that's where it's a frustration that we need to get past with that. So hopefully it answers that. I know I went all over the place with that question.
No, you're great because you really touched on the critical pieces that I think all men face, it regardless if they're in the military or law enforcement. And that's where I was going to go back to Pete on this one right now. Is Pete, what was the trigger point that decided to make you transition from law enforcement to a different career field? Because law enforcement has its own set of societal issues. And then, the thing is, you guys are out there putting your lives on the line every day. Unlike the military, when we go into combat, we go into putting our lives on the line. But you're, as a police officer, even if you're off duty, you're still on the clock. So how did you handle that transition into the civilian world?
I mean, the transition wasn't difficult, from going from law enforcement to, I would say, the unsworn world, which it is. But that transition, you're basically taking yourself out of community to being by yourself.
Yeah.
So that challenge in itself, and this is for all people too, military, first responders, you have a community in your workplace that you trust, you believe in, that you've built relationships in. You step out of that. Now you're stepping out into a world by yourself. So that's the mental challenges. I had this, and you can call it like a fallback or someone who had your back, things like that. They're just no longer there. So you just have to rebuild in a fashion that you want that to be, that vision. So when, it comes to here's where I'm at now, here's where I want to be, we rebuild. You build relationships in the community all the time, and you find those individuals that you trust each other enough to have your six. I mean, Michael and Jamie are one of those people. You're one of those people to me as well. I see you in the gym all the time, and we joke around. But at the end of the day, I know, based on our relationship that I built over time, that you both have my six. So that's really where it is challenging and it's scary. And why most people don't leave their workplace or military or law enforcement is because they don't know what it looks like. And what's great is you have the ability to design it yourself.
True.
You can find those people that you want in your life that will explode you to the next level, that will have your back, that will love you for who you are. And you don't have to put a face You don't have to worry about social media because the perception of that human being that you chose and they chose you is real.
I love it. I love it. So, Mike, your transition, when did you have that pivotal and the major point in your life where you were sitting there after you put the uniform down? Because you know how you Marines are, man. Y'all are brainwashed. You put the uniform down, and even though you're a Marine till the day you die, devil dog, leatherneck, when was it that you started having that moment where, like we all do, where okay, what the hell am I going to do next?
So, great question, by the way. And I was thinking about that. Some of the stuff Peter was saying just then. That transition came to me, forced on me that I wasn't expecting. And I'll be honest with you. So here's a little other thing. So I retired from the Marine Corps and I went right to the VA for that program I was telling you about. So I was in the VA, inpatient, 3 months. I'm sitting in there doing my thing. And then how do I come out of the VA? Boom, COVID hits. And Tampa goes into a lockdown. So I'm sitting at my home for like a month going, what am I going to do with myself? And during that time, it really what it was self-reflection. Ironically, you talk about, you know, you had said it, Peter, you had said it as well, where you're talking about, you know, getting away from the norm. And CENTCOM, just like you know, offered me, hey, why don't you go and be a GS employee, come back to, and I told myself I didn't want to run back to what I knew, what was safe, what was comfortable. And I used to always tell this to people, and they would laugh and joke. And I'd say, how do you always tell the good Marine when he retires? Is he grow his hair out, grew a beard, and has an earring. So when I first retired, I had the man bun, I had a full beard, brought the earring in. I was like, let's go. Because why I was doing that, I was forcing myself to be a transition. Instead of just being, and I'm going to call them out because I have a lot of friends that do it, you know, Sergeant Major freaking hard ass, where you still have a high and tight, you still going to gym freaking 3 times a day, you're still talking like a Marine. Brother, I'm retired. You know, I now say 2 o'clock. I don't say 1400. You know, it's a hard transition. And what people don't understand, and look, I'm going to call it out. I mean, you said it. As being a soldier, you understand Marines, we're brainwashed. We're of a whole different mindset than everybody. I had to learn to talk civilian. And that's a little hard. I mean, hell, I still knife hand. You know, I still look at people and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And they're like, oh my God, calm down, devil dog. And you can't turn it off. But one of the cool things that I did was I forced myself to look for people outside of the military and try to relate to those people and let them understand. But ironically, you gravitate to the people you know. And that's why, like when Peter came in my life, I was like, this is a true brother. This is somebody I can rely on. He wasn't in the Marine Corps with me, but guess what? He has the same mentality. And it goes back to, Grossman did the books On Combat, On Killing. And he talked about there is that, you know, everyone always said there was 99% sheep and 1% wolves. And he corrected it and said it was 98 and 1 and 1. Because the other 1% are sheep dogs. And that's us. The 3 of us on this and the thousands of men and women that serve both first responders and military, we're the sheepdogs. And sheepdogs want to hang out with sheepdogs. We try to hang out with poodles and Yorkies and all this other stuff, but we got to be with meat eaters.
Right.
And that's really when I realized that as a full 180 transition. You know, I did the whole like, hey, long hair, earring, beard, and said, hey, I'm going to be everything. And I realized I am who I am. I need to incorporate this new chapter. And I will leave on this last thing. The greatest line that was said to me, I was actually in a VA program, don't laugh, it was freaking glass blowing. And it helped out your mental health and everything. And it was this retired master guns, and he was talking about things. And he looked at me and goes, hey, look, Major, let me tell you something. It's not, you know, Michael Carrasquilla, Major, United States Marine Corps, retired, period. It's a comma. Now go figure out the next chapter in your life.
Absolutely.
And ever since he said that, I haven't stopped. And that's when we started the wine company that we're part of. And more importantly, now new chapter with Outdoor Valor and helping veterans.
No, man, that's great. And that's the thing is, like, I had to transition. And so I didn't have an arsenal when I was on active duty. But the weirdest thing is, as soon as I retired, I went out and bought skeet guns, started going to shoot skeet, started going to the range. And a lot of things that I hadn't done, I found, playing golf. And so what I did, I think for me, just to keep from being burned out and building relationships, like, me and Pete at the gym in the morning, and we'll talk about some ways you identify your stress and how you overcome it. Everybody has different challenges to do that. But what I found was the moment I made that transition, man, my life got great. But I ain't gonna lie, coaching high school football around those kids is just like being in the military. There's no greater gift. So, Pete, I know I see you in the gym. You got a trainer some days. You're actually pushing yourself to the limit. You guys are all young dudes, because I'm one of them old guys. But but have you always been one of those people that just like live in the gym and that's just your that's your euphorium, or that's just your utopia, or is it something that you decided is something you had to do one day?
That's part of my life. I worked out when I was in law enforcement for a little while, but it was challenging because I was tired. Working a shift, trying to go to the gym, have days off, you just want to sleep. Then I became actually a certified trainer, ran a gym.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm still certified now to this day. So it's been one of those places of peace for me.
Okay.
As an individual. Now, do I work out with other people? Yes. Do I have a trainer that helps me because I don't know everything? Absolutely. I love a trainer, right? There's always new things out there. But it's me against the weights. It's not me against anybody else. So I take myself out of the world for an hour and a half, say hi to Vince at the gym and everybody else that I know as well, because that's a community in itself. So the community helps bring me in and keeps me in because I built those relationships. Like, who am I going to see at the gym today? But it is a place where you battle the weights, you battle yourself, you erase all the noise. And that's just, however way you find that peace. I tell everyone in their schedule, you mark out an hour where it's just you. There's no social media, no phone calls, no family, no nothing except you. It could be a book. It could be reading the Bible. It could be listening to a podcast. But there's nothing externally where you just get mind challenged because you're moving in the direction. But if we focus on the ones that challenge us to say, oh, well, I could have that, but I don't. Or I want to live that life, but I can't. Right? That messes us up because it puts a carrot for us instead of us just focusing that 1 hour and just saying, it's just me. You can call it personal development. You can call it whatever you want to do, but you are holding true to what's important to the person. And that's 1 hour to yourself.
Awesome. I love that. So Mike, transitioning to you, since you talked about a little bit about your personal experiences and that you were talking about friendships and not having a tribe. And okay, so now that you've been removed for 6 years, now what adjustments did you make besides just your beautiful wife hanging around you? What adjustments did you make to become a more vibrant person?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's like one of the hardest things that we do as retirees is trying to find that tribe that we've all said and we've talked about. One of the biggest things I've had to do is to be more accepting and to say, hey, we don't all have to be Marines, sailors, soldiers. We don't have to be that mindset. Right. And I can actually accept and understand a different viewpoint from others. That has been the hardest thing for me to do in transition. I 100%, because I'll just call it out, and all the veterans out there understand what I'm saying. I don't understand the civilian mindset, and it's like, hey, General Buggs comes up to me and goes, hey, Double Dog, I need you to get this thing. Well, there's implied tasks and there's implied, like specified tasks, implied tasks, right?
Essential. Yeah,
And it's
essential.
like
You
an
know.
essential task. It's like, dude, I get it. I understand. He told me to do this, but he really meant for me to do all this other stuff. In like our job, and I tell somebody, hey, I need you to get this done. They're like, okay. And I go, well, why didn't you do this? You didn't tell me to, sir? Oh my God. And that drove me absolutely insane. And then I realized, okay, we're not all, up in the morning with the rising sun. So part of that, and then what I did, like I said, getting part of Outdoor Valor. Getting part of Outdoor Valor, being part of a veterans organization, gives me that loophole back to my brothers and sisters that I can find, so that when I get scared, or when I get nervous, or I get angry, or I get frustrated, or whatever, I can pick up a phone and I have that. And then that kind of gives me that balance, and that, I'll just say it, it's that warm blanket that we all want in life, and it's something I've always said, and I won't get on a tangent, but I always talk about is standing the watch. When you and I served, and Peter, when you were, in first response, with police force, you stand a watch. You put up your right hand, you say you solemnly swear to do, and you stand your watch. And when it's your time to stand down, you hope that other people take up that watch. But being part of Outdoor Valor gives me that chance to be part of the watch again, just on a lesser means.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I think everybody's organizations, and that's one thing I think that has saved me, is just being part of something like I'm Georgia Southern alumni. A bunch of guys that were through my ROTC program were all still friends. So, Pete, the most complex question is before I get into the deep one, but social media has played a major role in lives of first responders. And then, Mike, I want you to cover for veterans, because I think both need to be addressed. And, on social media, the police force has caught a lot of unnecessary grief. And so my take to this is that's had a major implication on the mental health for a lot of police officers, but also just our society in general. So from your take, from your foxhole, Pete, if you look at social media, how can we do better?
Social media, that's such we could go on for hours on that conversation, in all aspects of life. In the law enforcement side of it, when I was sworn, we didn't have video cameras on our phones. That was the day of the Nextel two-way. So
that's right.
when 9/11 hit, the Nextels actually worked. All cell phone systems were down, and we could actually communicate.
Right.
So I didn't really experience what I see today on social media as a law enforcement officer. And it is very challenging to watch when something is put up and then judgment is passed.
Yes.
So, whether that's the actions of the individual or the law enforcement officers, that it's not a fair shake to put that on social media and create judgment by the public, right? Jury of your peers, a judge, there's laws in place, right? For a reason. Right. I'm not a judge, right? I wasn't there. So why would I judge the circumstance of what happened? Let me hear what, the evidence and things like that. If I'm involved, but I'm not. Right. So for me to see that, one, it's a little challenging to watch because, it's not fair on either side. And I'm going to be very down the middle on that one. And the other is, it's none of our business.
Yeah. I agree.
Unless it's, Michael Carrasquilla or Vince Buggs. And I'm going to know. Those are my friends, right? I want to know the details. But if it's, some of the things that happen across the country, as far as the empathy towards, victims in any case, like I pray there's never a victim in any case, right. But we just don't know, and it's not fair for the public to pass judgment, make comments until all the dust settles and we kind of figure out what's going on there.
No, I agree. I think a lot of times, and there's different incidents that even if a police officer has a bad day, we act like they're not human. And I think as you look at our whole society, social media dehumanizes people, and people can just get behind a keyboard and have a 5 second snippet of somebody that cut not a part of a story, not the whole story, and yet we go straight to judgment. It's kind of like the old thing in the military: just have somebody file a complaint. And you have to prove that you're innocent, which is crazy. So I used to call that Russian law in the military. You're guilty till proven innocent. So, Mike, as you step back and you look at everything today with, not social media, and here are some of the things. So I'll give you one good context. There's several influencers on social media saying that veterans shouldn't have the rights of having disability. Veterans shouldn't be given like thank you for your service because that's the job they chose, that's on them, and that because a few veterans may have been fraudulent with their disability, that all veterans are that way. What you kind of take when you hear that you have groups out there that are willing to try to take rights away from veterans, and being a veteran yourself and knowing the dirt and the sand you chewed, how does that make you feel?
It very short, I will tell you, it frustrates me. Anyone knows me knows I'm a movie quoter, and I'll say this: I almost feel like being Nathan R. Jessup in Few Good Men. When he says, "You stand there, and you laugh about discipline and duty and honor, and those are joke words for you at a tennis match, where to us it means something."
Right.
And for those people that are out there like, oh, they chose that, blah, blah, blah. Those are the same people that are the ones that argue, oh, I shouldn't leave a tip to a server because they chose to work for that. Listen, I just said this to a gentleman yesterday, and he walked up to me and he said, I really thank you so much for your service to our country. I could never do what you do. And it's something I've said for a long, long time. And I used to say this to my young Marines and sailors. I said, we do what we do so others don't have to.
Airborne.
There you go. And that's the point. Those people that are judging us or saying those options, they don't understand. They enjoy this blanket of freedom that we offer. And then they question in the manner we do it. And I'm not trying to joke about that line because that is, again, from Few Good Men, you question. But the point is that when that was said, it was real. And listen, you get it. You deal with high schoolers. I mean,
bro, you have no idea.
Right? You know what I mean? But here's my thing is what people don't understand when they say, oh, they don't deserve this. Okay. You don't understand what it's like when you're sitting in the middle of a foreign country and the enemy has a vote. You haven't eaten, you haven't slept, you haven't done, you don't get a timeout. You don't get to say, hey, wait, we got to stop shooting for a minute so I can go to the bathroom. You don't get that option. That puts a mental stress and anxiety on you and everyone. And it frustrates me when people say, oh, I have a vote. You don't have a vote unless you stood the watch.
Right.
You stand the watch, you can talk about it. If you don't, man, get back in the bleachers and just watch us play the game.
Huh? I like that.
So there you go.
Hey, so Pete, as a man, how can we do better at showing leadership about mental health to our families and communities?
That's a very, very, very good question. It's a very in-depth question. Start with yourself.
Okay.
We have to be able to lead ourselves to be able to lead others. If we don't have that ability to manage, create boundaries, and create a world that you'd want someone to step into, we can't create that for someone else, whether that's in a chamber or in a nonprofit or on a football team or a lacrosse team. We have to create the world that people want to step into. Leadership is by example, always has been. My dad taught me that, and that will always stay with me, is that there's an example that you have to create. That world that you design, not everyone's going to want to be in that world. Not everyone's going to want to do, when I did my 2-a-days at the gym, no one wants to do those. Right?
I know for a fact.
there was a purpose behind that for me, right? And if someone shared that purpose and wanted to step into that world, I'd be happy to lead you. But you don't have to, right? But as a whole, in that's in everything that we do as men, is we create the world within ourselves first. Be happy with that world. Know how to manage the anxiety, the stress. Know how to ask for help to the right resources. Know how to build the relationships that are long-standing, and then lead from there. That's my advice on that.
All right, man, that was beautiful. So, Mike, what's your biggest message? If we walk away from this conversation, what's your biggest message that you would want men to understand, or veterans or first responders to understand, that you're trying to say that men need to do with their lives?
I first thing I'm going to say to them is, you're not alone, and don't be afraid to ask for help. I'm going to echo on a lot of stuff that Peter said today. I mean, he's been very eloquent in what he said about it. Be a man. Be a man, and being a man is not being afraid to say, "Hey, brother, I need help." It was an old passage that was given when I was walking in the Marine Corps. I don't remember who wrote it, so I apologize. I had it up on my desk actually when I was at CENTCOM, and it was a story about a soldier, and they use soldier because obviously grammatically you soldier for all the branches.
That's correct.
So, a soldier falls into a hole. And the hole's PTSD, and he has PTSD, and he falls in a hole. And another soldier walks by and goes, "Hey, hurry up, get out of there, man. They're going to call us formation. You can't climb out." And then the NCO walks by and goes, "Hey, if you don't get out there, you're going to be in serious trouble." And he's trying to climb his way out of this hole. And so we say staff NCO, but, in the Army, you say senior NCO, throws him a shovel and says, "Hey, figure it out. Dig your way out, get out of here." And then, of course, the officer walks by and says, "I don't know what your problem is, but you better figure this out right now. Stop asking. Just you got yourself in there. Get yourself out." And at the end, another soldier with PTSD jumps in the hole and says, "Hey, brother, you're not alone. I'm going to help you get out of here. We're going to get ourselves out." No, if I had an issue, I could call either one of you and say, "Hey, I'm hurt." And that's how, my founder of my organization started it. And that's what we do today. And the message I'm going to say to everybody is, be a man. You served your country. Don't be afraid, because we're all out there and you're not alone.
Oh, I love it. So I want to thank both of you guys for coming on. Keep it rolling. Hey, guys. So what I want to put out here real quick is Grayson Clothing has a lot of gear. I'm wearing the Philly stuff today. They give a discount for first responders. In Hyde Park, they have a showroom store. So I love going to Hyde Park there. But if you get a chance, I don't get any of the residuals, but their gear is good. They give a discount to veterans. And so I tell people, go out there and check it out. Catch it on sale. It's a little cheaper, but keep it rolling there. And then also, just like Pete and Mike have said, that if you have a struggle, call 988 or call the Veterans Hotline to get help. If you're a veteran, call the Veterans Hotline to get help. And if you're not a veteran, call 998, the suicide hotline, and get help. Do not believe that you are alone. There is somebody that wants to see you tomorrow. And we all have lost friends, be it in the police force, in the military, to suicide, and it's all preventable because it's a temporary problem, but we don't need any permanent solutions. And also, when you get a chance, get a copy of my new book. It's called Keep It Rolling, and it's a short read, so you can get on a plane and read. It's only 106 pages, but what I cover in there is some of the trials and tribulations I went through in the military, and some of the techniques I use to overcome stress and a lot of other things, because we all go through our levels of incidents and trials and tribulations, but in the end, we still got to come out and not be a victim, but be a warrior on the other side. And with that being said, I want to thank you both for coming on, and keep it rolling, guys.
Thank you.